You can sleep on the floor until you learn to respect our privacy." My daughter-in-law's icy voice cut through the phone like a slap across the face. 71 years of life, and for the first time, someone was ordering me to sleep on the floor like a dog in my own home. "Understood?" I replied. A single word, cold, calculated, because in that moment something inside of me died forever. 20 minutes later, I was dragging a mattress across the living room of my own house, preparing my new room on the cold floor where Jessica had decided I should spend the night, as a punishment, as a lesson. I'm Helen. For 3 years, I transformed my home into the perfect paradise for my son Michael and his wife. 3 years cooking their favorite meals, washing their clothes, cleaning up their messes, smiling while they treated me like the invisible housekeeper. But that night, as I arranged the sheets over the mattress on the floor, something changed. The sound of my knees cracking as I knelt on the chilly tile woke me from a 3-year-long dream, a dream where I believed that love and devotion would earn me their respect. How stupid I had been. The house smelled of the pot roast I had cooked for 4 hours, thinking we would have dinner together as a family. The dining room table was still set with my best dishes, the candles already melted, the food cold and forgotten, all prepared for a dinner that never happened. Instead, I got that call. Helen, my neighbor Barbara, who loves me like a sister, had whispered, "You have to hear this." She passed me her phone where she had recorded a conversation Jessica had with her friend that afternoon. My daughter-in-law's voice laughing. "I can't stand that meddling old woman anymore. Today I'm going to put her in her place. I'm going to teach her who's boss in this house." Then came the direct message for me. Now here I was, a 71-year-old woman, preparing my bed on the floor as if I were a punished child. My hands trembled as I spread the blanket. Not from cold, but from a rage that had been silently growing for 1,000 days. 3 years ago, when Michael asked if they could live with me, temporarily, I had emptied my primary bedroom to give to them. I had turned the small sewing room into my new bedroom, telling myself it was temporary, that soon they would have their own place. "It's just until we save up for a down payment on our own apartment, Mom," Michael had told me with that smile that had melted my heart since he was a baby. But the months turned into years, and my temporary became permanent. And I, like a fool, kept cooking, cleaning, paying the electricity bills that doubled, buying the groceries they consumed without so much as a thank you. Jessica never worked. She would get up at noon, eat the breakfast I prepared, leave her dirty dishes in the sink, and go out with her friends. She would return at night expecting dinner to be ready, her clothes to be washed, the house to be spotless. I, like a stupid fool, did it all with a smile. "Mom, it's just that Jessica is looking for a job," Michael would say whenever I hinted that perhaps she could help a little around the house. "Mom, Jessica comes from a different kind of family. She's not used to these things." "Mom, Jessica is stressed. It was always my fault for not understanding, for not being patient enough, for not being modern enough." But that night, lying on the mattress on the floor, staring at the living room ceiling I had painted with so much love when I thought it would be our family home, I finally understood the truth. I wasn't a loving mother. I was a fool. I wasn't an understanding mother-in-law. I was a free servant. I wasn't part of the family. I was the obstacle that needed to be removed. And that realization, as painful as a knife in the chest, was also my liberation. For the first time in 3 years, I slept soundly that night. I woke at 5 in the morning with an aching body and a broken soul. My bones creaked after a night on the floor. But for the first time in 3 years, my mind was completely clear. I got up silently, folded the sheets, and put the mattress away in the closet as if nothing had happened. As always, I made breakfast. Scrambled eggs for Michael, toast with jam for Jessica, freshly ground coffee that filled the kitchen with its familiar aroma. My hands moved automatically while my head processed what I had lived through the night before. "Good morning, Mom," Michael mumbled, coming down the stairs with his hair disheveled. He sat in his usual spot, picked up his fork, and began to eat without even looking at me, as if it were normal for his 71-year-old mother to have slept on the floor on his wife's orders. Jessica appeared 20 minutes later, wearing a pink silk robe that I had washed and ironed the week before. She poured herself coffee, took a piece of toast, and checked her phone while she ate. She didn't give me a single glance. "Michael, honey, my friends are coming for lunch today," she announced, without looking up from the screen. "I need your mom to make something special, to impress them." My son nodded without a second thought. "Of course, sweetheart. Mom, could you make that roast chicken they liked so much last time?" I stood by the sink, my hands wet from washing the dishes they had dirtied, and for the first time in 3 years, I didn't answer immediately. The silence stretched until it became uncomfortable. "Mom?" Michael insisted. "Of course," I finally murmured, because that was what I always did. Say yes, smile, please. But something had changed. While I chopped vegetables for the special lunch for Jessica's friends, while I seasoned the chicken with herbs I grew in my small backyard, while I set the table with my good china, a new voice whispered in my head. Why? Why did I have to cook to impress the friends of a woman who had humiliated me the night before? Why did I have to use my money to buy expensive ingredients for people who didn't even greet me when they arrived at my home? Jessica's friends arrived at noon. 3 women in their 30s, dressed in expensive clothes, carrying designer bags that cost more than my monthly Social Security check. They walked into my house as if it were a restaurant, laughing loudly, dropping their coats anywhere for me to hang up. "It smells delicious," one of them exclaimed. "Jessica, you're so lucky to have a mother-in-law who cooks like this." "Yes, she's very useful," Jessica replied with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Although sometimes she gets a little too involved in our business." They all laughed, as if I weren't standing right there, serving the lunch I had spent 3 hours preparing. "So when are you two moving into your own place?" another friend asked. "Oh, I don't know," Jessica sighed dramatically. "We're just so comfortable here. We don't pay rent, we don't buy food, we don't clean. It's like living in a 5-star hotel, with room service included. More laughter, more humiliation." I kept serving, smiling, being invisible. "Besides," Jessica continued, lowering her voice, "but not enough, Michael is very attached to his mom. He says we can't leave her alone, as if it's our responsibility to take care of some old woman. An old woman, that's what she thought of me. A burden, a nuisance, an old woman to be tolerated." I finished serving the cheesecake I had prepared that morning, the one that had taken me 2 hours to make, and retreated to the kitchen. From there I could hear their conversations, their laughter, their derogatory comments about the mother-in-law who doesn't understand boundaries. I washed the dishes in silence, put away the leftover ingredients, cleaned the kitchen until it sparkled. All automatic, all mechanical, while my mind processed every word I had heard. When they left, Jessica didn't thank me, neither did Michael. They just disappeared into their room, my old room, and left me alone cleaning up the remains of a lunch where I had been the butt of the joke. That evening, as I was preparing dinner, Jessica came down to the kitchen again. She leaned against the counter and looked at me with that fake smile she had perfected. "Helen," she said in a syrupy voice, "I hope you got the message from yesterday. It's not personal, but Michael and I need our space. As a young couple, you understand?" I nodded, without stopping my stirring of the soup simmering on the stove. "Good," she continued. "And one more thing, my friends will be coming over more often. I need the house to be spotless at all times, okay? We don't want them to think we live modestly." "Modestly, in my own house, with my money, with my work?" "Understood," I said again, that word that had become my refuge, my armor. But inside, something was roaring. The breaking point came 3 weeks later, on a morning that started like any other. I was in the kitchen making breakfast when I heard Jessica talking on the phone in the living room. Her voice, loud and carefree, carried through the walls as if she owned the world. "No, Mom, don't spend money on a hotel. Just stay here when you come to visit," she said, laughing. "After all, the mother-in-law can sleep on the couch for a few days. It won't kill her." I froze with the skillet in my hand. The couch? After making me sleep on the floor, now she wanted me to sleep on the couch so her mother could use my sewing room? "Yeah, Mom, you know how old people are. They get used to anything," Jessica continued. "Besides, that way she can help me more around the house. When you have free domestic help, you have to make the most of it." Free domestic help. That's what I was to her. Of course, Michael agrees. She lied shamelessly. He understands that my comfort comes first. That's why we got married, right? So he could take care of me and give me everything I deserve. I turned off the burner with trembling hands. 71 years of working, of raising my son alone after his father abandoned us. Sacrificing my dreams so Michael could go to college, could grow, could become the man who was now so blinded by a woman that he couldn't see how she was humiliating his own mother. The problem is the old woman gets sentimental sometimes, Jessica went on. Yesterday she told me she missed sleeping in her own bed, as if that's my problem. I told her straight up, Helen, this is my house now. If you don't like it, you know where the door island. She was lying. She had never said that to me. But the mere fact that she was inventing it for her mother broke my heart. Do I feel guilty? Not at all, Mom. These old ladies need to understand their place in the world. They've had their time, now it's our turn. Something inside me exploded. I walked toward the living room where Jessica was still talking, lounging comfortably on my sofa, her bare feet propped up on the coffee table that had belonged to my mother. I stared at her until she felt my presence and looked up. Mom, I'll call you back, she murmured into the phone. But she didn't hang up. She wanted her mother to hear what she was about to say to me. What do you need, Helen? She asked with that perfected, icy smile. I need you to pack your things, I said, in a voice I didn't recognize as my own, and get out of my house. Jessica blinked, confused. Excuse me? You heard me. I want you and Michael to leave, today. She sat up on the sofa, the phone still at her ear. You can't be serious. This house belongs to Michael too. He's your son. This house is mine. It's in my name. I pay the property taxes. I pay the utilities. And I don't want you living here anymore. For the first time in 3 years, I saw fear in Jessica's eyes. Real fear. Michael, she screamed toward the stairs. Get down here. Your mother has lost her mind. My son came running down, his shirt half buttoned. What's going on? Your mother is kicking us out of the house, Jessica sobbed, instantly switching to victim mode. I don't know what I did wrong. I was just talking to my mom and suddenly she got like this. Michael looked at me with an expression I knew so well. The same one he'd get as a child when he'd done something wrong. Confusion mixed with guilt. Mom, what's happening? Why are you doing this? Ask your wife, I replied, my gaze fixed on Jessica. Ask her what she said to me last night about sleeping on the couch. Ask her what she tells her friends about the useless old woman who cooks for them for free. That's not true, Jessica protested, but her cheeks turned red. You're lying. You're making things up because you're jealous that Michael loves me more than you. Mom, please, Michael pleaded with me. There must have been a misunderstanding. Jessica wouldn't. Wouldn't what, Michael? I cut him off. Wouldn't order me to sleep on the floor like a dog? Wouldn't call me free domestic help? Wouldn't make fun of me with her friends in my own house? Michael fell silent. In his eyes, I saw the exact moment he realized I was telling the truth. But I also saw something else. Something that broke my heart forever. I saw that he didn't care. Mom, he whispered, maybe you're exaggerating a little. Jessica is young. Sometimes she says things without thinking. But you know we want you here. They wanted me there. As the housekeeper who worked for free. As the old woman who took care of all the problems so they could live like royalty. I walked to the front door and opened it wide. Out, I said. Both of you. Now. You can't do this, Jessica shrieked. You don't have the right. I smiled for the first time in weeks. I have every right in the world. This is my house. Mom, you can't be serious, Michael shouted. But for the first time in 3 years, I was completely serious. Where are we going to go? We don't have any money saved. That's not my problem, I replied with a calm that surprised even myself. You had 3 years to save. 3 years living rent-free, eating for free, without paying a single bill. What did you spend your money on? Jessica stood up like a cornered animal. You told us we could stay. You made us believe this was our house too. It was a temporary favor. You turned it into a permanent arrangement without asking me. But we're family, Jessica sobbed, and for the first time, her tears seemed real. I thought you loved me like a daughter. I laughed. A bitter laugh that came from the depths of my broken soul. Like a daughter? Daughters help their mothers. Daughters appreciate sacrifices. Daughters don't order their mothers to sleep on the floor. It was a misunderstanding, she cried desperately. I was angry because... Because what, Jessica? Because I breathed in your presence? Because I existed in my own house? Michael approached me, his eyes pleading. Mom, please, just give me 1 week to find something. Just 1 week. Number. I said, no, Michael. You're leaving today. Now. But it's Saturday. We can't find an apartment on a Saturday. You could find time to humiliate me on a Saturday. You could find time to make fun of me on a Saturday. Now you can find a place to sleep on a Saturday. Jessica ran towards the stairs. I'm going to pack, but this isn't over. You have no right to treat us like this. Jessica, I called out before she went up. She turned, her face twisted with rage. Do you know what the saddest part of all this is? She looked at me without responding. That I really wanted to love you. That for 3 years I woke up every day, hoping you would give me a chance to be the mother-in-law you needed. That I saved money to buy you anniversary gifts. That I planned special dinners to make you feel welcome. Her eyes filled with tears, but I didn't care anymore. That when you were sick last year, I stayed up all night taking care of you. That when your mother yelled at you on the phone, I was the one who comforted you. That when Michael worked late, I was the one who kept you company so you wouldn't feel lonely. Helen, she whispered. But none of that mattered, did it? Because to you, I was always just the stupid old woman you could use and throw away whenever you felt like it. She remained silent because she knew it was true. 2 hours later, their suitcases were by the entrance. Jessica was crying on the sofa while Michael loaded the bags into the car. The house felt strange, as if I had just woken up from a very long nightmare. Mom, Michael said to me as he carried the last suitcase out. This isn't right. We're your family. Family doesn't humiliate. Family doesn't belittle. Family doesn't use. You're making a mistake. When you calm down, you're going to regret this. I looked at him intently. My son, the baby I nursed for a year, the little boy I read stories to every night, the teenager for whom I worked double shifts to pay for his college. Michael, I said softly, the only thing I regret is that it took me 3 years to realize you're no longer the son I raised. He fell silent. For a moment, I thought I saw the boy he once was, but the illusion vanished when Jessica called him from the car. Michael, let's go. We don't have to put up with this. My son looked at me one last time. When you change your mind, you know where to find us. I'm not going to change my mind. He got into the car without saying goodbye. Jessica shot me a venomous look from the passenger window, but it no longer affected me. She had lost all her power over me. I watched them drive away from the front door of my house. Their car disappeared around the corner, and for the first time in 3 years, the silence that remained didn't scare me. It hurt me, it shattered me, but it didn't scare me. I closed the door and leaned against it. The house smelled different. It smelled like freedom. I walked to the kitchen, and for the first time in 1,000 days, there were no dirty dishes waiting for me. There were no clothes to wash. There were no dinners to prepare for ungrateful people. I went up the stairs to my old bedroom. Their room. The door was open. They had left a few things. A magazine on the nightstand, a sock under the bed, a bottle of perfume on the dresser. I sat on the bed that had been mine and could now be mine again. The sheets smelled like them, but that could be changed. Everything could be changed. I picked up my phone and dialed Barbara's number. Helen, she answered with her caring voice. How are you, honey? I need your help changing my sheets. Barbara arrived in less than 20 minutes with a box of pastries and that motherly smile that had been my lifeline during so many difficult years. When I opened the door, she didn't ask any questions. She just hugged me tightly, and I knew I had made the right decision. My girl, she whispered as she held me close. It was about time. We went up together to change the sheets in my bedroom. Barbara worked in silence, folding the linens that smelled of Jessica and Michael, while I opened the windows to let in the fresh air. For the first time in 3 years, the afternoon sun fully illuminated my room. You know what the strangest thing is? I said as I shook out the curtains. I don't feel guilty. Barbara stopped with a pillow in her hands. Why on earth would you feel guilty? Because I'm his mother. Because mothers are supposed to sacrifice everything for their children, no matter what. Oh, Helen, Barbara sighed, sitting on the bare mattress. Who told you that lie? My whole life. My mother used to tell me. Society tells me. Even I used to tell myself. Well, they lied to you, honey. Children grow up to be independent, not to turn their mothers into slaves. Barbara was 73, 2 years older than me, but with a wisdom I was just beginning to discover. Her 4 children lived in different cities. They worked, had their own families, and when they visited her, it was with genuine respect and affection. Barbara, I asked as she put clean sheets on my bed, do you think I'm a bad person? She laughed, a clean laugh that filled the room with light. Helen, dear, you're the most generous person I know. Too generous. That was always your problem. Too generous? Yes, honey. There's a difference between giving love and letting people walk all over you. You never learned that difference. That night, Barbara stayed for dinner with me. We cooked together, something simple and delicious. And we ate at the kitchen table, instead of in the formal dining room. We talked about everything. About our children. About our mistakes. About the years we had left to live. Do you know what you're going to do now? Barbara asked as we washed the dishes. I have no idea, I confessed. For 3 years, my entire life revolved around them. I don't know how to live just for myself. Well, you're going to learn. And it's going to be the most beautiful adventure of your life. How can you be so sure? Barbara dried my hands with a dish towel and held my face as if I were her own daughter. Because for the first time in years, when I look into your eyes, I see Helen. The real Helen. Not the shadow of a woman you had become. That night I slept in my bed. My real bed. Between sheets that smelled of floral fabric softener and in a room where no one had told me I didn't belong. I slept for 8 straight hours without waking up once. The next morning, Sunday, I got up without rushing. There was no breakfast to prepare, no clothes to wash, no house to clean to impress anyone's friends. I made coffee just for me, toast just for me. And I sat on my patio to watch the sunrise for the first time in 3 years. The phone rang at 10 in the morning. It was Michael. Mom. His voice sounded tired, defeated. We spent the night in a hotel. Jessica hasn't stopped crying. And, Mom, please. This is ridiculous. We're a family. You two are a family, I corrected him. I am your mother. There's a difference. I don't understand what's gotten into you. Why are you being so cruel? I laughed. Cruel, Michael. You want me to tell you what cruel is? Cruel is ordering your mother to sleep on the floor. Cruel is calling her free domestic help. Cruel is making fun of her with your friends in her own house. Silence on the other end of the line. Michael, I continued, for 3 years you lived rent-free in my house. You ate my food. You used my utilities. You slept in my bed. And never, not once, did you ask me how I was. If I was tired. If I needed help. If I was happy. Mom, we just thought you. You didn't think. That was the problem. What do you want us to do? Get on our knees and beg for forgiveness? I don't want you to do anything, Michael. You've already done enough. But you can't just cut ties like this. I'm your son. Being my son didn't give you the right to disrespect me. And being your mother didn't obligate me to put up with it. I hung up the phone and put it on silent. The rest of the Sunday was magical. I read a book I had bought months ago but never had time to open. I watered my plants without rushing. I called my sister, Margaret, who lived in another city, and we talked for 2 hours without anyone interrupting me to ask me to make something. Helen, Margaret said before we hung up, you sound different. You sound free. I feel free, I confessed. And for the first time in years, I feel proud of myself. That night, as I lay in my bed, in my room, in my silent and peaceful house, I knew I had done the right thing. I had finally come home to my own life. On Monday morning, the first attacks began. Not physical, but something much worse. Emotional blackmail disguised as family concern. My phone rang at 7 in the morning. It was Jessica's mother, a woman who had never said a word to me in 3 years, but who now presented herself as the voice of reason. Helen, it's Linda, Jessica's mom. she said in a syrupy voice. I'm very worried about this situation. What situation? I asked, though I knew perfectly well what she was talking about. Honey, the kids told me what happened. Look, I know that sometimes we daughters-in-law can be complicated, but kicking your own son out of the house is a very serious thing. I didn't kick my son out. I asked them to leave my home after 3 years of abuse. Abuse? Oh, Helen, don't exaggerate. They're just kids. They're learning. Jessica tells me she has always treated you with so much respect. I let out a mirthless laugh. Respect? Is ordering me to sleep on the floor respect? I'm sure it was a misunderstanding. Jessica is devastated, Helen. She hasn't stopped crying since yesterday. What a shame. An uncomfortable silence followed. Linda had expected me to immediately give in to her daughter's tears. Helen, she continued, her voice firmer, you can't be so cruel. Think about your grandchild. What grandchild? The one they're going to have. Jessica's pregnant. My blood ran cold. What? She just found out last night. That's why they're so desperate. They can't be bouncing from hotel to hotel with a baby on the way. I hung up the phone with trembling hands. Pregnant? Jessica was pregnant, and they were telling me this now, just as I had kicked them out? The phone rang again. This time it was Michael. Mom, I need to talk to you. Your mother-in-law already called me. Did she tell you about the baby? Yes. Mom, please. Everything changes now. You're going to be a grandmother. You can't deny your grandchild the right to know you. Is she really pregnant? Or is this just another manipulation? Of course she's pregnant. How can you even ask me that? Because for 3 years you've lied about everything else. Mom, if you don't let us come back, my child will grow up thinking their grandmother didn't love them. The blow was a direct hit. He had found my weak spot, and he knew it. Come to the house, I finally said. But just you. I want to talk to you alone. Michael arrived an hour later, with dark circles under his eyes and wrinkled clothes. He sat in the living room like a stranger, his hands clasped together, his gaze lowered. Show me the pregnancy test, I said without preamble. Excuse me? If Jessica is pregnant, she must have a medical test. Show it to me. Mom, you seriously don't believe me? I seriously don't believe either of you. The time for blind trust is over. Michael took out his phone and showed me a picture. It was a home pregnancy test with 2 pink lines, but something looked off. When was this test taken? Last night? Where? At the hotel? And where did you buy the test? The pharmacies close early on Sundays. Michael got nervous. We had it saved. Saved? Yes. Why? Because we've been trying to get pregnant for months. That's a lie. What? It's a lie, Michael. If you had been trying for months, Jessica would have stopped taking birth control. And I know she's still taking it, because I was the one who picked up her prescription at the pharmacy. My son fell silent, trapped in his own lie. Besides, I continued, that photo is edited. You can see the filter they used to make the lines more intense. Mom, tell me the truth, Michael. Is she pregnant or not? He hung his head, just like when he was 10 years old, and I'd catch him getting into mischief. She's not pregnant. And whose idea was this? Yours or hers? Jessica's. But Mom, we were desperate. We have nowhere to go. You had jobs. You had salaries. You had 3 years to save. But we thought that you were so stupid you were going to gift us your house forever? Michael stood up. It's not your house. It's the family house. Dad helped pay for it too. Your father left when you were 5 years old. I paid for this house by myself, working 2 jobs while raising a boy who now lies to my face. Mom, please, 1 more week. We just need 1 week to find something. Number. Why not? Because I don't trust you. Because 1 week would turn into a month into a year, and a year into me being your housekeeper again. Number. You're not our employee, are you? Then what am I, Michael? Your guest in my own home? Your tenant who pays to live here? He had no answer. Go, I said, tired. And don't come back until you understand that being my son doesn't give you the right to disrespect me. Mom, if I leave now, I might never come back. I looked at him squarely. Maybe that's for the best for both of us. Michael left, slamming the door. But this time, the sound didn't scare me. It was the sound of a door closing for good on a chapter of my life that had lasted far too long. That afternoon, Barbara came over for coffee and found me calm. "How are you after all this?" "Free," I said. Finally free. For the next 2 weeks, the house was filled with a silence that at first terrified me, but gradually became the most beautiful symphony I had heard in years. For the first time since Michael got married, I could walk barefoot through my own house, leave a half-finished cup of tea without someone scolding me, sleep in on Sundays without anyone expecting breakfast to be ready. But Michael and Jessica hadn't given up. Their attacks came in ways I never imagined. One Tuesday morning, while I was watering my plants in the garden, a police car pulled up. 2 uniformed officers knocked on my door with serious expressions. "Ma'am, are you Helen Miller?" the younger one asked. "Yes, that's me. We received a report of a vulnerable person being neglected. Your son, Michael Miller, reported that you are living alone, have memory problems, and may be a danger to yourself. May have dropped." "I'm sorry?" He also mentioned that you kicked them out of the house during an episode of mental confusion and that they are concerned for your well-being. The fury I felt in that moment was unlike anything I had ever experienced before. It wasn't the blind rage from when they humiliated me. It was a cold, calculated indignation. "Officers," I said, in the calmest voice I could muster, "can I offer you a cup of coffee while I explain the real situation?" I invited them in. I served them coffee in my best china. I showed them my perfectly cared-for plants. I showed them my spotless house. I let them check my medications, which were organized by day and time. "Does it seem to you that a person with memory problems could keep all this in order?" I asked. The older officer smiled. "Ma'am, it's clear you're perfectly fine. This happens more often than you'd think, children using the authorities to pressure their parents. What can I do about it? We're going to report that the complaint is false, and if they do it again, they could face charges for misuse of police resources." After they left, I called Barbara. I needed to tell someone what had happened before my head exploded. "Oh, honey," Barbara sighed after hearing the whole story. "They've really hit rock bottom now. When they start using the police, it means they're out of ideas. Do you think they'll stop?" "No, they'll get worse. But you have to stand firm." Barbara was right. The next day, a social worker arrived. This time, the report was that I was depressed and at risk of suicide because I had thrown my family out during a psychotic break. The social worker, an older woman named Patricia, was easier to convince than the police. After an hour of conversation, it was clear that not only was I mentally stable, but I had made the healthiest decision of my life. "Mrs. Miller," she said before leaving, "I've seen many cases like this. Adult children who can't accept that their parents have boundaries. Your son needs therapy, not you." But the worst was yet to come. On Friday afternoon, Barbara came running to my house with the local paper in her hands. "Helen, you need to see this." It was an article in the letters to the editor section, signed by Michael Miller, a concerned son. The headline made my blood run cold. "When Alzheimer's Tears Families Apart." In the article, Michael described a mother who had started showing signs of dementia, who had become aggressive and paranoid, and who had kicked her son and daughter-in-law out of the house in a fit of confusion. He asked for the community's understanding for families struggling with this terrible disease. "He's publicly diagnosing me with Alzheimer's," I screamed after reading the entire letter. "He's telling the whole town that I'm crazy." Barbara hugged me as I trembled with outrage. "Honey, this is defamation. You can sue him." That same afternoon, I called Stephen Miller, a lawyer I had known years ago when I worked as a secretary at a law firm. Stephen now had his own practice and an impeccable reputation. "Helen," he said after listening to the whole story, "you have a solid case for defamation, but you also have something else." "What's that?" "Harassment. The false calls to the police, the social worker, now this letter in the paper. It's a clear pattern of harassment. What can I do? We can file for a restraining order, and we can sue for both defamation and emotional distress." "How much will it cost?" Stephen smiled. "For you, nothing. Consider it a favor for old time's sake. Besides, when we win, they'll be paying all the legal fees." That night, for the first time in weeks, I slept peacefully. I was no longer alone in this battle. I had allies, I had rights, and I had the tools to defend myself. Michael had made a fatal mistake. By taking our family dispute into the legal arena, he had opened a door he could no longer close. On Saturday morning, as I ate breakfast on my patio and read the news on my phone, I smiled for the first time in days. In the local news section, there was a small article about a defamation lawsuit that had been filed the day before. It didn't mention names, but I knew it was referring to my case. The war had officially begun, but this time, I had the better weapons. The court summons arrived at Michael and Jessica's place on a Tuesday morning. Stephen had told me they would receive 3 documents: the defamation lawsuit, the request for a restraining order, and a notice that they had 72 hours to publicly retract the false statements about my mental health. I didn't have to wait long to see the results. At 2 in the afternoon, my phone rang. It was Michael, but his voice sounded completely different. It was no longer the arrogant tone of the past few weeks. It was pure panic. "Mom, what is this? Are you suing us?" "Yes," I replied with a calm that surprised me. "But we're family. You can't take us to court. You took me there first when you called the police with false reports. That was different. We were worried." "Worried? Or getting revenge because you can't use my house for free anymore?" Silence on the other end. "Michael," I continued, "you had the chance to resolve this like civilized adults. Instead, you chose to publicly defame me and use the authorities to harass me. Mom, please, drop the lawsuit and we can talk." "Number. The lawyer says we could go to jail. You should have thought about that before you lied about me in the newspaper. It was just one letter. I didn't think. You didn't think that lies have consequences? You didn't think that falsely accusing someone of dementia is a crime?" Michael started to cry on the phone. For the first time in months, I heard the little boy he used to be, scared and regretful. But it was too late for tears. "What do you want us to do?" "I want you to publish a full retraction in the same newspaper. I want you to admit that you lied about my mental health, and I want you to leave me alone forever. And if we do that, will you drop the lawsuit?" "Number. Why not?" "Because the damage is already done, Michael. Half the town thinks I have Alzheimer's because of you. My neighbors look at me differently. The lady at the grocery store talks to me like I'm a mental invalid." It was true. Since the letter came out, I had noticed the changes, the pitying glances, the conversations that stopped when I walked up, the way some acquaintances would talk to me very slowly and very loudly, as if I couldn't understand them. "Mom, I swear I didn't want this to happen." "No? Then what did you want to happen when you wrote that letter?" Silence again. "You wanted people to see me as a poor, crazy old woman who had lost her mind," I continued. "You wanted to generate pity so someone would convince me to let you come back. I just needed help. Well, you got the exact opposite." I hung up the phone and immediately called Stephen. "How do you feel?" my lawyer asked. "Powerful," I replied. "For the first time in years, I feel powerful." "Good, because the preliminary hearing is tomorrow, and you need to be strong." The hearing was a spectacle I'll never forget. Michael and Jessica showed up with a court-appointed lawyer who clearly hadn't prepared the case well. They sat in the back of the courtroom, she crying dramatically, he with his head down. Stephen presented all the evidence meticulously. The recordings of the false police calls. The officers' reports confirming the claims were baseless. Copies of the defamatory letter from the newspaper. Testimonies from Barbara and other neighbors about my perfectly normal mental state. The judge, an older man in his 60s, reviewed everything with a serious expression. "Mr. Miller," he finally said to Michael, "is it true that you called the police reporting that your mother had memory problems?" "Yes, Your Honor. But, and is it true that when the officers evaluated her, they found no signs of mental deterioration?" "Yes, but we thought." "And is it true that you later wrote a public letter claiming your mother suffers from Alzheimer's without any medical diagnosis to support it?" Michael remained silent. "Your Honor," the public defender interjected, "my client was acting in good faith, concerned for his mother's well-being." The judge looked at him with disbelief. Good faith? Publicly defaming a person is acting in good faith? Stephen stood up. "Your Honor, we request an immediate public retraction, payment for damages, and a permanent restraining order." "Granted." The judge said without hesitation, "Mr. Miller and his wife have 48 hours to publish a full retraction in the same newspaper. Furthermore, they will pay damages in the amount of $25,000 plus legal costs." $25,000. It was more money than I had seen in one place in years. "And Mr. Miller," the judge continued in a severe voice, "you are hereby forbidden from approaching your mother, contacting her directly or indirectly, or making any public statements about her. If you violate this order, you will face criminal charges." Michael slumped in his chair. Jessica moaned as if she'd been stabbed, but I felt like a 100-pound weight had just been lifted from my shoulders. When we left the courthouse, Stephen hugged me. "Helen, you've just won more than a lawsuit. You've just won back your dignity." He was right. For the first time in years, someone had listened to my side of the story and decided that I was right. That night, I celebrated alone in my house, with a glass of wine and the certainty that I had fought the most important battle of my life. And I had won. The retraction was published in the local paper that Friday. It was a full public apology, where Michael admitted that he had lied about my mental health, that I had never been diagnosed with any form of dementia, and that his statements had been the product of a poorly handled family conflict. He apologized to the community for the false information and to me for the harm caused. But more than the public apology, what really changed my life was what happened next. Barbara arrived that afternoon with a mysterious smile and an envelope in her hands. "Helen dear, this came for you." It was a letter from the management of a senior living community in the nicest part of town. They had read about my case in the newspaper and wanted to offer me a job as the social activities coordinator. "A job?" I asked in disbelief. "At 71 years old?" "Read the whole letter," Barbara insisted, her eyes shining. The offer was incredible. Not only was it a part-time job organizing events and activities for the retirement community, but it included a beautiful furnished apartment as part of the compensation package. It says here, they were looking for someone with experience in family organization and handling difficult situations, I read aloud. My case demonstrated exactly the kind of character and determination they need. "Are you going to accept?" Barbara asked me. The decision should have been difficult. It meant selling the house where I had lived for 30 years, where I had raised Michael, where I kept all my memories. But when I thought about it, I realized the house no longer held happy memories. The last 3 years had tainted every corner with humiliation and pain. "Yes," I said without hesitation, "I'm going to accept." The moving process was liberating in a way I never imagined. Every box I packed was a weight lifted from my heart. I donated most of the furniture, keeping only the things that truly mattered to me. The photos of Michael as a child, the books that had been with me for years, my mother's china. When a young couple with a baby came to see the house, I knew I had made the right decision. They looked at the place with the same hope I had felt 30 years ago. The house needed a family that would fill it with love, not resentment. My new apartment was small but perfect. 2 bedrooms, a balcony with a view of the park, a modern kitchen. And best of all, it was completely mine. No one could ever order me to sleep on the floor of my own home again. The job turned out to be a blessing I didn't know I needed. Organizing birthday parties, dance nights, book clubs, group outings. For the first time in decades, my energy was focused on making people happy, who genuinely appreciated me. Mrs. Miller, Arthur, an 80-year-old widower who had become my closest friend, would tell me, "You have a gift for making us all feel like family." Family. That word no longer hurt me like it used to. I had learned that family isn't always about the people who share your blood. Sometimes it's the people who choose to stay in your life because they value who you are. Barbara came to visit me every Sunday. We would cook together, go to the farmer's market, and laugh at absurd soap operas. She was the sister I never had and the companionship I had always needed. 6 months after the move, I received an unexpected call. It was Michael. "Mom." His voice sounded different, more mature, more tired. "Can we talk?" "Doesn't that violate the restraining order?" "I had it legally lifted. I needed to talk to you." I agreed to meet him at a neutral coffee shop, half an hour from my new home. When he arrived, I hardly recognized him. He looked gaunt, with deep-set dark circles and wrinkled clothes. Jessica wasn't with him. "Where's your wife?" I asked. "She left," he mumbled. "Took off with someone else when she realized we didn't have the money to support her. The money from the lawsuit? She spent it in a week. Clothes, salon appointments, expensive dinners. When it ran out and she had to get a real job, she decided I wasn't enough for her. I didn't feel any satisfaction hearing this. Only a deep sadness for the wasted time. What do you want, Michael?" "I'm sorry," he whispered, his eyes filling with tears. "I want to apologize. You were right about everything. I was a horrible son. I treated you like my employee instead of my mother. And I want a chance to repair the damage. Not for you to support me or help me financially, just to get my mom back." I looked at him for a long moment. He was my son. My only son. But he was also the man who had humiliated me for years. "Michael," I finally said, "forgiveness doesn't erase the consequences. I can forgive you for being a bad son, but that doesn't mean I'll go back to being the mother I was before. I understand." "No, you don't. The mother I was before let people walk all over her. The woman I am now does not." We sat in silence. "If you want to try to rebuild a relationship with me," I continued, "it's going to be on my terms. We see each other when I want, where I want. And the first time you feel you can disrespect me, it's over forever." "I accept," he said immediately. "We're starting from scratch. You're not my baby who needs me to take care of him. I'm not your servant who exists to please you. We're two adults trying to get to know each other again." "Is there hope?" he asked, his voice breaking. I smiled for the first time in our conversation. "There's always hope, Michael. But now it's up to you to earn it." 6 months later, Michael and I have built a new relationship. It's not the classic mother-son relationship we had before. It's something better, a friendship between two adults who respect each other. He works 2 jobs to afford a small apartment. He comes to visit me once a week, and for the first time in his life, he asks me how I'm doing before he tells me about his problems. Today, sitting on my balcony watching the sunset, I know I made the right decisions. I reclaimed my dignity, my independence, and my right to be happy. At 71 years old, I finally learned the most important lesson of my life. True love never requires you to erase yourself as a person, and that lesson set me free forever.